Alrighty, everybody. So I got a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, somebody stole my beard. Bummer. They had a nice beard going. Anyway, so what I want to discuss is kind of what do I want to talk about? First, I want to talk about perspective. A lot of people. First I want to discuss ethics, and I want to discuss law, and here goes. So if your highest claim of what's ethical is it's legal, then you have no morals. You have no morals, you have no standards, and you have no ethics. You know why? Because any law can be passed. Think about that. Any law can be passed. And if your standard is, well, it's lawful, or it's legal, or it's not legal, or it's not lawful, if that is your only standard, or your final standard, then you have none, because of the fact that what's legal doesn't necessarily equate to what's right, and what's right doesn't necessarily equate to what's legal. So, where's the line? Where's the line that you draw? If everything can be justified by legality, then anything can be excused by legality. And that's a dangerous position to take, because it's not rational. You know, there's no critical thought being engaged. All of that is an appeal to authority, and it's an appeal to the very authority that in most other circumstances you will decry as being tyrannical, rightfully so, mind you. But the problem I have is that as long as they're attacking people that you disagree with, it's excused. That's immorality. Oh, I'm sorry about that. What a terrible noise. Oh, what? That's what happens when plastic gets cold, I guess. But my point being, if tomorrow it was made illegal to drive after sunset for everybody unless you pay the government a tax, would you support the arrest of those who disobey that law? Another thing I want to discuss is political allegiances. The political allegiances are debasing, and they're debasing for one reason. Actually, many reasons, but the most important one is it'll cause you to justify what one politician does while condemning that very same action committed by somebody that wears another color tie. Where's the morals? Where's the standards? Where's the ethics? At what point does conscience override political affiliation? From all I can see, it doesn't. Political affiliation 100% of the time overrides conscience. And here's why. It's because even if somebody gets fed up or disgusted with the political party that they've shown allegiance to, their reaction never is, well, maybe it's not the party itself, but the allegiance to political parties that is the issue. That's never the response. It's always going from one extreme to the other. And you know what? I agree with the lefties that what happened to Renee Good, if it's not just a psyop, which most things are, even if they're real, most things are still psyops because of how they're used to manipulate you. So I agree with all of the lefties that are protesting ICE, and I think it's absolutely abhorrent that that conservatives are so in favor of ICE and fuck around, find out type of attitude. Man, you're cheering for the decimation of what makes this supposedly a great country, aren't you? Where's the value in that? And so just like I agree with the lefties on how the murder of Renee Good being just unabashed evil, I also agree with conservatives that the murder of Ashley Babbitt, I think her name was also just as egregious. Why can't anybody who follows political party lines see both as egregious? Because on one hand, they will decry the taking of a human life, even if it's sanctioned by the government, as corruption. But if it's somebody who disagrees with them politically, then they'll approve of it. That's just being evil. That's all that is. That's just evil. And have we been so duped into calling evil good and good evil? Is that where we're at, really? You know, the party, the people that belong or associate themselves with the party that threw such a fit over the blatant tyranny that was exercised during the Rona scamdemic. Those people, where are you? Where are you now that Americans are being killed? Where are you? It seems now that it wasn't so much about the tyranny being exacted on the American people, but who was committing it. If it's committed by somebody who you vote for, who you have invested your emotions into, and your time into, and your love, and your lust, and your you into, then you ignore it or you call it good. And who doesn't do that, right? So in my daily life, the things I do, I justify as being good. You know, somebody, not me, somebody might drive without a license so that he can, you know, parent his children. And I would consider that a net positive thing. But other people see that as being a criminal. So I understand it. We justify that which we support. But there has to be a line, right? Doesn't there? There has to be a line at which point you say, you know what? Doesn't matter what my allegiance is. I was fooled. I was fooled into supporting somebody who is unsupportable. I was fooled into sanctioning actions that are deplorable. That doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. In fact, if you can admit it and take ownership, it makes you a good person. It makes you a wise person. But if you see that and you double down and just say, well, you know, the government said it was okay, so it's okay. You know, fuck around, find out. If you do that, then you're a coward. You're just a straight coward, man. How have we gotten from a point of seeing tyranny so clearly and then condoning it 4 years later, 8 years later, whatever? And here's the real litmus test, or the acid-base indicator, the cabbage test, if you will. think about the actions taken by your favorite politician and then attribute them to the politician you like the least. And then ask yourself how you'd react in that situation, because if it's not the exact same way that you react to your chosen politician, then you're a hypocrite. If Joe Biden sent ICE out to conservative cities, even if it was done for a reason that you approve of, and then they start attacking conservative people, would you still support them? Or is it only because it's somebody who disagrees with you politically that you will support her demise? And here's the thing though, like I said, most things that we see are psyops. But that doesn't mean that the toll that it takes on your conscience isn't real. That's the point of this. It's incremental disruption of your conscience. And so you'll excuse these things little by little by little. And then eventually you'll just say, well, you know what? The government approves of it, so it must be right. I mean, at what point, though, do you say, is this doing any good for society? I'll tell you what. I grew up in Chicago. I grew up working at my dad's landscape company. And most, I'd say 98% of the employees there didn't even speak English. They were from Mexico or further south. And they were productive, they were honest, they were kind, they were heartfelt in everything they did. They work so hard. And they're proud of what they take home from that labor. They're good people. They have community. They stick up for their families. They live with their families. That's what they're trying to get out of here. You Americans, we Americans, no, you Americans, you politicking Americans have been duped into selling your conscience to the highest bidder. You call it the lesser of two evils. But because of your ability to turn a blind eye to such atrocities, you've gone past the point of no return, where if you say you're wrong, then it means you supported somebody's murder. And if you don't say you're wrong, then you keep feeding the same beast that you are feeding now by supporting this. None of this needs to happen. None of it does. If you want illegal, I can't even say that. If you want illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants out of your area, then stop making it so lucrative. Stop letting corporations make it so lucrative. Rather, stop making it so lucrative for corporations to hire them. You think what I hear, oh, they're taking your jobs, man. No, they're not. They're not taking my jobs. You know why? Because they don't speak English. They can't take my job. And the jobs that they do have are jobs that 98% of Americans wouldn't do. Have you ever spent a single day on a farm? Like, I'm not talking about like the goat farm that I work on. I mean a real like agricultural farm. Those are all undocumented immigrants, undocumented labor. You know, they are, we used to call them migrant workers, right? Because they go from farm to farm, area to area, making sure that we have enough to eat, that we have enough to feed feed the animals, that we have enough to function as a society. And yet, what do you think is going to be accomplished once they're gone? Do you think you're going to have the jobs that they had? I don't see that ever happening, because like I said, nobody wants to do those jobs. It's going to be automated. And so where once there was a human being making money from that job, supporting their family from that job, contributing to society from that job, likely paying taxes from that job, because you think that undocumented immigrants are just, excused from paying taxes. They're not. They're hit hardest for the taxes because it's so easy to take advantage of them. And when you're poor, everything's taxed at a higher rate, whether you want to admit it or not, because you're taxed on having to buy single quantity things. And that automation, when it takes over, then what? You've just empowered the corporations. You've empowered the giant machine that is stealing your generational wealth. And you're doing it because of hubris, because you've been told to hate somebody based on where they come from, without even realizing the irony that your family would never have been here had they not likely emigrated here in an undocumented sort of fashion. It's just pathetic. If you really want to solve this, make them citizens. Make them citizens, man. One thing I've noticed over my life is, and I'm going to put this on cops, when they accuse everybody of lying, it's because that's what they do. Cops are allowed to lie to further an investigation. Everybody knows that. That's why if you tell them that you're sober, they don't believe you, because they lie all the time. They think you must also lie all the time. It's time to stop feeding this. Stop acting like children. Have a great day.